So what we do introductions to development. I think this has been long since we did this. So if you can give a session on this, you're really welcome. We also do code labs. We have fireside chats on different technologies, ideas, innovations, products. Yeah. Talk about productivity, teamwork, and collaboration, and product review and launching. In case you are doing a project, it can be a company project or side project, and you need reviews, or just picking different products and seeing their thought process and how to start from code and making the idea out there. So open source also, and then other interesting community activities, you can check out their YouTube channels there. If you also member of this community and also have some YouTube channels. Oh, so there's Geeks Talk Thursday, there's Frank Tamra, Tech Dictated. I think the latest one which we should very the list is from Team Zowen, which has also been awesome since the year started. I think we'll add it to the list, so you can also check Team Zowen. I think he uses his name, Team Owens, YouTube. Also have series of free courses here and there. The latest being on C++, which I think he released in the course of this week. Then so there are also other different communities that you know about. 100-254 Content Kenya, Flutter Kenya, Atlassian community. There's Flutter Kisumu, Vue.js Kenya. You can check all of these communities. Just go to Telegram and search for this name, Atlassian community, Nairobi. I think I should add Nairobi there. Then also the newest is Eliza Conf Africa. I think this is going to be one of the first and the biggest, and the first in Sub-Saharan Africa, Eliza Conf Africa, actually Africa. Then yeah, so you can go and check it out. It will be virtual. Then there's DotCon KE, which is also happening this year, big and better, the largest Android developer conference in Sub-Saharan Africa. Yeah. Then you can find us on YouTube, Geekstock Thursday, GitHub Geekstock. So all of the videos we do, we always record them. Then we publish them, I think, a week or so, at least after a week. Then I'm being told that the channel for Teams Owen is called Code with Teams Owen. Yes, it's in the chat. You can look it out then. So today, a privilege to be having Willie Masharia. I'm missing an E in his name. I know he's going to kill me for this. It's Willie Masharia, software developer. Also, I'm also a student in computer science. So I know he's going to introduce himself more on this. Then, I who is moderating this session, I'm Magak Emmanuel, also a software developer. Mash Magak is my Twitter handle. So the channel is Twitter. The channel I talked about for Team 7 is not Twitter, YouTube. Yeah, so what Will is going to talk about today, yeah, I got his name now, right, in this page now. So creating RESTful APIs using AWS API Gateway. You know, this is gonna be fun. You know, every day when guys apply for jobs, like knowledge in AWS ecosystem will be a plus, will be a bonus or anything, added advantage. So yeah, this is a step to grab one of such knowledges. Yeah, I think from this point, I'm just gonna pause from here, and I'll stop sharing my screen, and I'll ask Willie take over from there.
Okay, yeah. So I think my voice is good and everything is okay. So guys, welcome to this Jigs Thursday. I can see there are some There are some friends here from Cape Town. Welcome. I can see Tino and the rest. So, JIC Thursday is usually a platform where it's organized by a developer community from most of them are from Eldoret, but it's spread across Kenya. So you can say it's a local Kenya developer community where they come together, they talk about tech, they help each other. And also during Thursdays, some Thursdays, there are training and sessions. And I decided to come today and give you some few things that I have been working on since December. And what basically we are going to see, okay, let me first of all introduce myself. Okay, my name is Willie Masharia. Um, I was actually in Moi University. I studied there for 1 year. And then I was fortunate to get a scholarship to go to University of Cape Town. And that's where I have been studying computer science. And also currently I have started my master's just a week ago in computer science. And I'll be working more so on cybersecurity. So we can talk more about that. I can give you my LinkedIn. You can see what I'm doing. But because we want to keep this session short, and the fact that I don't want you to get tired. Today, what we are going to do, we are just going to create a RESTful web API. And the success of this is that we are going to test it using Postman. So I'm hoping that you can have your Postman open. I do have, where's my Postman? Maybe I closed it. I'm going to open it again. So we're gonna test that API using Postman. We're gonna see whether it's successful or not. Yeah, so to start with, I created this small document here. You know, like when you are creating an API, you need to define something called resources. You have to define the get method and the post method. So what I want us to do today, we are just going to interact with the student database. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna create an endpoint. Obviously, we're gonna generate it using AWS. When you feed in the student ID, it's gonna return all the details of the student. Or if you, I don't know why this animal student. Yeah, so it's just a typo there. So yeah, so let's go to the AWS. I wanna take you to the AWS services. Okay, yeah. So to start with, obviously we have to define. You know, with AWS, you have to with AWS. I have logged into my AWS. I think let me go to my home or something. I'm just minimizing some icons here so that I can have good working. I think everyone can see my screen, right? Emmanuel?
I can see your screen.
Yes, okay. Yeah, so for us to create this, like I said, for us to create this API, we are going to use various AWS services. And what we are going to use, first of all, we are going to use DynamoDB because this is where we're going to have our data, such that when we invoke the post request, it is going to post the data to the database. And then when we invoke the get method, it is going to pull the data from the database. So that is DynamoDB. Then we are going to use Lambda. Lambda is a service by AWS where you can be able to write functions. And I think I have opened it here. Some of the, I don't know whether I'm supposed to show you some of the functions that I have written in the past, but I have written, but they are in another region. You know, with AWS, obvious functions which are written in one region, until you make them visible to the other region, they can't be seen. So if you go like here to US East, you'll be able to see some of the Lambda functions that I have written, to be able, some of the functions that I have written, but to prevent and also for you to get what I'm doing, I saw it. We are going to create something fresh. This is the DynamoDB. I'm also going to change the region. So with AWS, they are really strict with regions, and that's why AWS is one of the good cloud platforms, if I may say, because until you make everything visible across all regions, someone or a developer who is working in the same company in another region, until you give them access, they can't be able to see it. Then another service that we are going to use, let me go back to our AWS, is the API Gateway. And this API Gateway is where we are going to create the endpoint, is where we are going to configure our get method and our post method. So to start with, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to the AWS API Gateway, and allow me to change the region, yes. And I'm just going to start creating an API. So when you go to a new region, you can create a HTTP API, you can create a WebSocket API, you can create a REST API, and you can create, these are all the same. I don't know why. Oh, yeah. This is a private REST API, meaning you can only access it through a VPC. VPC, this is where maybe the API which you are creating is only going to be used by your company alone. So you can be able to specify which endpoints or the traffic that is going to hit your endpoint. I don't know whether that makes sense. So it means that the API is private use only for your company, but meaning that if you say, or if you give, it is going to ask you for specification of where the traffic will be coming from. So it is going to restrict any other traffic that's gonna hit that API, not to hit that API. So for us here, we are just going to create a public REST API, and as you see, it work with Lambda, HTTP, and also it's an other AWS. So as I said, we're going to create a student API. I have started, by the way. Yeah, so yeah. So this is like an example of an API, but for us, we are just going to create a new API. We are just going to call it student API. And obviously, we're gonna, you can see for API, you can say regional, edge optimized, or private, but for the, you can leave it for the defaults. You create the API. Yeah, so this is the API now. You have the student API. And as I said, if I go back to my document, no, this. We are going to create a student resource. So for those people who might not know about API, is that an API has something we call the host, and then after that host, you have what we call a resource or a web resource. So something to, let me open my Postman. I'm going to show you. I think you can see my Postman. So if you look at this endpoint, which I have described up here, this first part here, it is the host. And then from here, this is the stage of the API. I'll show you that later, but this is the resource. So what we're gonna do now in our API here, we're going to create a resource, and this resource we are going to call it student resource, such that after the endpoint, after the slash, you're gonna have the student, and then from there you can be able to enable things like query parameters and everything. So from here, I create my resource. Yes, and then with your resource, you can be able to come here, and now you can be able to create a method, and then you can call it a get method, and then you can be able to invoke it. And the get method, as you can see here, the get method is asking you about choose the integration point for your new method. So you can be able to put a Lambda function. So the Lambda function is the one that is going to be invoked when this API is being hit. So you can choose a Lambda function. If you put it, then you have to list it here. But for now, we have not yet created the Lambda function, which I'm just going to. So instead, you don't have any Lambda function, create a Lambda function in your current account, or provide a Lambda function ARN. So if you have other Lambda functions in other regions, like here, you can be able to, like I said, AWS services, they are always sensitive about regions, and you have to be very, very careful when you are integrating region to other region. So I'm just going to leave this here for now until we go and create a Lambda function. But I would like us to come here and create our table, our student table, which is going to store the data. I'm just going to call the student, I'm just going to call it as the student table. And the partition key, so here is the thing with DynamoDB. DynamoDB is a database by AWS, and for you to, it has two types of query. There is a query and there is a scan. So for you to do a query on DynamoDB, you have to provide the partition key, or what we call the primary key. It's not somewhere, if you want to apply filters without the primary key, what you do a scan. And I'm going to show you what that means. But the problem with scan is that it scans the whole database first, and then it applies the filters, and then it gives you the result. But with query, it takes the primary key, and then it goes directly to that item. So you have to be very careful when you are designing your DynamoDB tables, because sometimes your table might get very, very, very large. So you have to minimize the use of scanning the database. Even though you are going to return all the items based on your filter criteria, you have to be very careful when you are designing, such that you are able to save, obviously, the computation time. So I'm just going to give it the student ID. I'm not going to add a sort key. A sort key, you can also add it where a table you want it to be sorted, maybe in ascending order according to the sort key. Yeah, but here I'm just going to give it just the student ID. We create the table. Yeah, so this is a student table being created. Yeah, just gonna give it some few minutes here. So right now, if you look at the table, it doesn't have any item, but you can create an item. You can add it in a tree manner or in a text manner. Me, I always prefer text manner. I'm just gonna go to my, yes, I'm just gonna come here, paste. I'm just showing you how you can add it here. Yes, we have the student ID. This is text. Yes. So you can, okay, there. Let me just add it. I'm just gonna give it my student ID. This is JSON, so I'm just gonna age. Yes, it's fine. Let's see, 16. So 28. Yes. School, because this is a student. We give it jigs. Yeah, so that is the item. I can add it to the database. And one thing about DynamoDB, even if I do a post request and my post request or student has so many details, it is not going to complain because, as I said, uh, DynamoDB is a NoSQL database, so it doesn't have that rigid schema. So it is not a must that you. The only thing which is important is for you to define the partition key, or what we call the primary key in DynamoDB. So we have that. So now we have our database for the student where we can post and query. We do have our API where we left it. It's only for us now to go and create a Lambda function that is going to serve the API and connect it to the database. So I'm just going I'm just going to go to the AWS Lambda, come here and create a function. So now here is, I'm just going to create a function from scratch, and I'm just going to give it, I'm just going to say, function name, say, student DB operations. You can give it any name, operations. This is I'm just giving the Lambda function. Remember the importance of Lambda function, as I said. For me, I'm not going to use Node, and this is the best thing with AWS. It has all the current and the most used languages by developers. For me, I usually use Python, so I'm just going to use Python 3.6, and then this is something that I'm going to insist more so with AWS. AWS, one thing that you have to understand is that AWS services, they work with permissions and they work with what we call execution role. I'm not going to explain this because it's a lot of explanation, but what I can advise you is to go and check about giving execution role and running role of a function, because for this function we need to give them access to various services. We need to give the function access to DynamoDB and also access to the API gateway. And this is, like you can see here, they say they can be able to create a default role, but for me, I'm just going to use an existing role. I think I created one, and the one that I'm going to give it, I'm going to give this one for add to animal DB. I'm just going to show you how this role is structured. The role, basically, what you do is just, like in a company, let's say you're in a company like AppsLab, and there is a developer whose work is only to operate the front end or the it's only to operate some services, and other developers, they are able to access other services. So with AWS, you can see this role. I have given the function access to S3 bucket, the API gateway, DynamoDB full access. There is also partial access and stuff. There is also the CloudWatch and the API gateway administrator. So I only gave this Lambda function permissions only to the services which I wanted to work with, and this is the work of AWS administrator. I know some of us are doing those AWS certification exams, and these are some of the questions that you are asked, or these are some of the things that, or even a company which is looking to hire an AWS administrator, they are going to test, do you know about policies? Do you know about roles? Do you know about policies and about creating users? And how do you manage teams of developers on AWS? So that is also something that you can go and read more about it. So for our function, which is our Lambda function, I'm just going to give it this role because it's something that I have worked with, creating the API. And then from there, I create my function. So the function is student DB operation. So one thing with it, it gives you some starting code, which I'm going to show you. Yeah, so this is the Lambda function for now. You can see, you can be able to edit this function the way you want it. Like this is called the handler, or what we call the, immediately you hit an API, it obvious invoke there, it invoke the Lambda function, which then is able to process the request according to how you have defined it. So here you can be able to edit it. I remember there is a time I was facing some problem with the runtime. I'm going to I don't know where it is. Is it test now? Okay, I'm going to show you when it comes to testing. So here you can be able to edit. Um, this is the obvious. Lambda function is the name of the function, and Lambda handler is the basically is the function. Okay, Lambda function is the name of the file, and Lambda handler is the name of the function that is going to that is the entry point. Let me show you. So you see, like, this is called Lambda function. That is the name of the file. And then you have Lambda handler, which is the function which is going to, you can change them. You can call this, you can create another file here, right? Yeah, you can create a new file. You can call it, let's say student.py, right? Student.py. So you can open it. It doesn't have anything. You can basically copy this and put it here if you want to do that. And then what you can do, you can come here. Okay, you can change here. You can change this Lambda and call it student handler. You see? So, and then you can deploy it. Deploys. The best thing with AWS is that you can have someone who is working on front end, and you can have someone who is working on back end, creating these services. So one thing that you're going to observe is that there is independence, complete independence of services. DynamoDB, you have someone who is creating APIs, and someone who is creating Lambda function, and that's why it's called Amazon Web Services. So you're just using what we call it's called microservices architecture, and which is very, very useful, because even if this function fails, there are other Lambda functions which can serve you. So we are going to change. We are going to end it here because we have. I think we have called it. We have called it. We have called this function student, and then we have student handler. So we are going to say look at the handler is the student file, and the function which is going to do that is the student handler. Student handler. Yes. So now that is it. We do have our function here, which is basically student.py. You can be able to. We are going. I'm going to write some code here, because here you need to add some code where you're going to detect, is it a get event? Okay, event basically is like a JSON file which is sent. Sometimes what I usually do is that I usually print string event for you to be able to see exactly you're going to see some, what you're going to see, you can be able to generate, okay, you can be able to do what? You can be able to observe what is this event about, and then from there you can be able to process it. So for now, for us now to complete this function, we're gonna come back and work on this function. But what I'm going to finish creating this API. Remember, let me go back. Let me go back a bit. So for us to create this API, one thing that I said is that we need an endpoint, we need a resource, and we need get and post method. And then from there, remember remember a third party or the postman is going to hit this API. This API need to invoke a Lambda function, and this Lambda function is the one that is going to push the data to the database or get the data from the database. So I guess you are getting the logic behind. So for this API, we are going to integrate it with Lambda function. The one which I have created is called student. I don't know whether you can be able to see it. Student, what is the name? Student, the region is student DB. Let's see if we can see it. Student DB operation. I'm sure it is coming to. I don't know why it's not detecting it. I'm sure.
You change the region.
It's the region, eh? Okay. Let's check. Oh, it got it. It got it. Oh, the region? Which region is this? US to West 1. US to West 1. Okay, yeah, I think it was able to detect it. Let's check. Let's check. Yeah, like I said, AWS is very sensitive on yeah, it was able to get it. Yeah, it was able to get it. Okay, so now this is just if you look here, this is just a way of how the whole thing is going to flow, and this is really helpful because you are able to see basically how various or how your API is going to be invoked. So you see, when the client, this is the client, when they said the request, this request is going to invoke the Lambda function. This Lambda function is the one which is going to bring back the response. So you can do a test here of which I'm sure it is not going to, this is a get method. Right now, we don't have anything, but you can see it, the return. You can see we are getting some response from the front end, because that is the way our function is. We need to develop it further. You see, I have told it return this row from Lambda, and this is the return. This is the return that I have defined so far. So you can see 200, it means it executed successfully. You can be able to follow here and see. So now what we are going to do is that we have completed the first part. We do have our API, and you can even go ahead and deploy it here, but I'm not going to do that for now because we need to work on our Lambda function. The Lambda function is like what I can call what basically you are coding here. That is basically what you are coding. And I'm also going to touch a bit if you want to, because you know with AWS, it doesn't have all the libraries that you need. So basically, what you need to do, you need to work on your local development. I'm just going to open my PyCharm. Basically with AWS, if you don't have those libraries, the only library which is present on AWS cloud environment is the DynamoDB library, which is present. All the other libraries, if you want to get, let's say, I'm just going to show you some code that I wrote before I can create. I'm just touching on a very important concept for you to understand, or which can help you during your development. If you want to, okay, it's loading. If you want to, here it is. Yeah, so you can see in my project, I was using some other libraries. I think you can be able to see. I was using some other libraries from Python. And basically what you do with AWS, it doesn't have these libraries. So you have to download them basically on your computer. And then what you do, you create a zip file, and then you can upload it here. You can see here they are asking me if I want to upload something from zip file. But for today, we are not going to use an external library. So I'm sure this is going to, whatever we have here is going to serve us. So basically what we're gonna do here, I'm just gonna get some code from some other work. There's some work that I was doing. So let me go to, yes. So I'm just gonna copy this. This is some code that I wrote. So we're gonna have, this is the student handler. This is the function. We're going to, I can basically increase this because that way, and I can delete it. I can delete that one. So now we do have create student. So it means if we have a post event, what we're gonna do, we're gonna search student. So yeah, so this is where I'm going to develop two functions, and I'm just gonna use some of the code that I have written, and I'm just gonna keep modifying it until it works because of the time. So from my function, the way I have told it is that if you come here, you're going to print event first, just for you to see your, basically for debugging. But if event and the HTTP method is post, then you need to go to create student function. If it is get student, you're going to get the search event, okay, search student event. And this has reminded me something very critical. If you go to the get method here, I'm just going to show you. With the get method, with the Lambda function, we need to give it some mapping template, and the mapping template is going to generate some headers for us, such that when we are sending a post request, we don't have to say, okay, this is a get method, this is a what. And AWS basically provide you with that, so you can come here when there are no, you can come here and say when there are no templates defined, and then you can come here and add a mapping, and then you can say application JSON, which I'm sure is going to work. And then from here, you can be able to generate a template, and then you can say a method request. So with this, it has defined everything for us. You can see it is going to look at the environment and see is this a get method, what is it? HTTP method here. You see, it is able to get it from the context. So you don't have to define it from your end. So I'm just gonna do that, and then we're gonna save it. I'm sure now it is saved. Right? Yeah, right now it's saved. You can go back and okay, if you test it now, it is going to fail because for here you have been able to tell it if it is get method, do this, if it is post method, do that. So with that, we need to define two methods, which is create student and search for student. So just to prevent us going very, very far, I'm just gonna copy some of my code. I'm just gonna remove some things that are not needed. So this function, we are going to call it create student, right? Because it's the one that is going to serve our post method. So here, obvious, we're gonna come here. Okay, I think I can remove this because this. Okay, we don't need this. Another library that I was using. We don't need it. We just basically need to post the data to the database. We don't need the S3. Yeah, for now. Yeah, we don't need it. Yes, we don't need it. Right? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So now we can work with this code. So one thing, like I said, we are going to work with our database. Okay. So what we're gonna do basically, we are going to import this bottle. It is the one that works with DynamoDB. I'm just gonna copy it from my code. I'm doing this basically just for us to speed up rather than keeping you guys here. So I'm just gonna do that. You see, it has not complained because this bottle 3 is a library for AWS. You can check it out with AWS documentation. So now from there, you can see what we are doing here is that create student is going to take event, and then what it's gonna do is that you can create the string. Okay, this is not a must, but you're going to create a client of the DynamoDB, and then for our table, remember we created a table here, and the table we called it student. So I'm just gonna copy the name, put it here. This is the table which you're going to deal with. You can print the status of the table. You can put the data to DB is equals to event body JSON. Remember here we are going to print the event. I'm going to show you. And then from there, you can call a method called table put item. And then you can say item is equals to the data to DB, which you basically describe here. And then from there, you can return the event and stuff. So I'm just going to remove these comments here. So with this, basically with this function, now we can be able to go and create our post method. Remember, this is a resource. We need also to create a post method here. So we're just going to create a post method here. Obviously, we're gonna integrate it with our Lambda function, and our Lambda function is called student DB operations. Here, we're gonna save it. We're gonna say yes. All this it is going to here. So now it's here. Remember, with our integration request, the way I said, we need to put our mapping template here. We're just gonna say we're gonna work with application JSON. I'm sure every one of you here know about web request and what it means, where you have to define the JSON and the other parts. So here you can be able to, you see, with the request, it generates that for you. So now we have our post method, and obvious, remember, according to my function here, if you come here again, I have told it, I have a function which is going to serve our post method. So it is going to invoke the create student and is going to push this data to our DB. So before I move on to create the search function, I'm just gonna test the creative student function, whether it has worked. So I can come here to the post method and test. So what we need to do, there is nothing on the header. For our request body, we just need to send our JSON. So I'm just gonna copy paste this, and we're gonna give it like a payload. I know you guys know what a request body is. So for the student ID, remember student ID, they should not be the same. So I'm just gonna change this. Let's say Dunstan 009. I can, like I said with DynamoDB, I can add any other property, so long as there is the primary ID. So I can add, let's say, location, and this location I can call it Moi University. You see, so now I'm just gonna send this request body, and what we are going to see, this request body or this information. Remember here you are just testing. You're gonna see the data is going to be posted here on the DynamoDB. So I'm just gonna hit the test button. Yes, the test button. Let's see, it's taking place. You can see our response code is 200, meaning it has, and you can see the body JSON which was taken. And just to speed up, let's see whether something has come. And you can see it has posted the data to the database. So now you can be able to see your API, the post method is working. So now what we need to do again, now we need to go to our get method. Remember with our get method, what we said, with our get method, what we are going to do, we are going to utilize the student ID, and then it is going to return the details of that student. So with that, I'm just gonna go back to the work which I was doing. Copy some code there about search an animal. Basically. Let me give it. I'm just gonna copy it, and then I'm going to modify the code. Come here. Here. And obviously I'm gonna come here and say this is search student, yes. And then now for search student, obvious, we are going to okay, I don't need to use this. Okay, this is for the, okay, we're gonna use this for another thing. So I wanted this to be for the school. What I wanted us to, like I said here with our API, I'm just gonna take you back how I had designed this API. What we said with our get method, we are going to have where we give it a student ID, and it returns the details of the student, and then where we give it a school ID, and it returns it returns all students of that school. You get, So I'm just gonna do that student school ID. Yeah, just give me the next, I know we are over time, just give me the next 15 minutes. I'm sure we will manage to finish. So for this one, basically what we're gonna do, obviously we are looking at the student database. I'm just gonna come here and change to the student database. So what we're gonna do, check is, does the data, is our query, is our, are we looking at the student ID? And basically what it's gonna do, it's gonna go student ID, obvious. So according to the query string which I have, I'm just gonna dig through my JSON. JSON, we know it's a dictionary. So I'm just gonna dig through and get the student ID from the JSON, and then I'm going to get the response, and the response is going to be if the student ID is equals to the student ID which I have, student ID which I have obtained from the JSON. So that way, and then if it is for the school, I'm just gonna finish this school ID. We're just gonna go through the school ID, and basically it is going to do, I'm just gonna, this is going to help me to explain what I meant by query and scanning. School ID, and then, yeah, so everything is set now. Yes, everything is set. So now you can deploy it. That's gonna show you. So now you can deploy it. So now, what we have now, we have created a Lambda function that is going to look at our post request and the get request. If the post request is invoked, basically it is just going to add the details to the database of the student. If the get method is invoked, first of all, it looks, are you looking to get details of a student only? So if it's a student, you have to give a query parameter, which is the student ID. And if you are looking for, let's say, a student from Moi University, it is just going to bring all the students from that. So with our Lambda functions, now we are okay with it. We can go, first of all, do some few testing and change before we deploy the API, and we can be able to invoke it from the postman. Okay, so now we have our get. So basically, for get method, remember, like I said, what you do, you work with query string. So I'm just gonna go and take this student ID, copy paste it, come to our API and say student ID equals to that. So let's see whether it is going to give us some details about the student. So now you can check, this is the details about that student. And basically we used ordinary the query string, which is the student ID. Let's add some more database. Okay, let's add some more data. This is school. I think in our, what did we say here? Here we used school ID. I think let's use school rather than the school ID. Basically, I'm just gonna change it quickly. I'm just gonna change it quickly, see whether it is going to work. Yes, so now we can go. So now this is the query about the specific student. You can come and look for school and say the school is Jigtalk, right? Jigtalk, capital. Jigtalk. Let's see now. So now what it's going to do, it is going to scan the database, and it's going to give us all the students. So it is telling us there is an error message. Obvious is giving us filter expression, key, filter, school dot equals to school. Okay, so we need to go back to see what we did. Okay, so with our, okay, yeah, here. So this is the error. So we are going to take school from our menu. Yeah, so you can go back and test it again. So we expected to bring us the details of the two students. So you can check, it has brought us the details of the two students who go to this school. So what this means is that our API is good, is working. It has been fully integrated with our database using our Lambda function. And within the next 5 minutes, I want you guys to test for me. Okay. Okay. I see. There is something that I need to do. I need to create some API key, I think, for you guys to be able to access. Because when you use Postman, you need to obviously configure the AWS stuff. So here, what I'm going to do, I'm just gonna come here. Our API is complete. We have tested it, it's working. So you're gonna come here to action and you're gonna come and do what we call deploy. Obviously, this is a new stage. You can call it JIC testing. And what AWS is going to give us is going to give us now an endpoint for us to invoke that API. So JIC testing, deploy. So now you can see it has given us an endpoint. Here it is. If you want to send someone else this API, you can do what we call export. You can do a JSON and the Swagger and stuff, and it has already downloaded it. Like, it is very simple for you to share your API with other developers you are working with in the team. Like, very simple. You can see it has generated for me the API, and you see I can be able to send it to you. You can see all the paths. Okay, let me come back here. You can be able to see the path is only for student for now. The method, we do have the get method. It consumes this. These are the response code. You can be able to define all those for yourself. I'm just gonna come back here. This is the what? This is the what we call as the endpoint. So now I'm just gonna open my my Postman. Obvious, I'm gonna come here, put it there. So obvious, this is the endpoint. Like I told you guys about endpoints, this is the endpoint. And for you to invoke something which is running, what you need to add something else, you need to add something else. It's called the resource, and obviously the resource here is the student. One thing we need to do, we need to go and get an API key, right, guys? So I'm just gonna generate one API key. So this is your API here. You can come here to the API key. You can generate. Let's say I can create one for you guys. You can come here, create an API. The customer name is let's say Manu, and it will to generate the API. Let's see. So Manu, this is your API key. Should I give it to you on the chat? Hello, Manu.
Yes, yes, yes.
I wanted to give you an API key to test from your Postman. Do you have your Postman on?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you can take that API key, everyone. maybe. Obviously, I'm going to delete it after this to avoid more costing, with AWS. So what I want you to do, guys, I'm also gonna give you the endpoint. Open your Postman. Yes, open your Postman. Put that endpoint, and then you can put the API. Okay, for you to configure your Postman, come here to the API key. Choose API key. For the key, put API key in small letters, and then for the key, you can be able to put. That one. You can be able to come and put it there, here, right there. So now you do have your post. You do have your. We want to post. So obviously, with the post, one thing we need to do is to put the body. For it is the body that matters. So you can come here, like I said with testing your API. Make sure that you are putting. Okay, you are putting the student ID as the mandatory property. So you can come here. You can just copy paste. You can add more stuff. So I'm just gonna come here, put them. Remember, student number should be different. So I'm just gonna call this just a random. You can give it Strathmore or other university that you wish to. You can even add some more. Like I said, you can add some more some more field. You can say county. Okay, not location. What else? Faculty. Yeah, faculty, because this is a student case. Let me say science. You see, science that way. So now I can be able to hit the API from away from the AWS. Let's see whether it's going to make the request. You see, it has made the request successfully. So let's go to our database, see whether we have added the item. You see, is there someone else who have tested it? You can give.
I'm doing that now.
Oh, you're doing that now? Yeah. Someone else test it. I just want to be able to see whether you can be able to see. No one else. Who is
Actually, I'm
using?
getting.
There is. Watu kwani wako wapi, Manu? Kwani watu wako wapi?
Watu wananga data bana.
Oh, Thomas, maybe you can tell.
I'm getting an error actually.
Which error are you getting?
I'm also getting an error.
Which error?
Validation exception. Validation exception.
It's giving you an error.
One of parameters are invalid.
Inasema what is your? Did you configure your Postman well?
Yeah. One or more. Actually, inasema one or more of the parameters. Let me see.
Remember, it's a post method. You have to post, not a get method. It's a post.
Yeah, it's a post. Yeah.
Yeah. For now, remember for get you have to give it a parameter. So put post, and then you put this endpoint, and then you put the resource. You have to specify the resource, student, and then your body you put your JSON file, and your JSON file should have student ID. Everything else you can add if you want.
Student ID. I think I'm missing that.
Nini una miss?
Student ID.
Yeah, student ID na ikuwe in kamo case, student ID. Let me see kama kuna mtu ameongeza. Acha nifungue. Acha nifungue hii dynamo. Hakuna mtu ameweza ku have successful nini? Whatever.
Hapo angalia
Sasa. Yeah. Umeweza. Ni yako Manu, hii test 1. Imeingia. Imeingia. You guys can be able to see. Mtu mwingine nini? Nani amedelete? Kuna mtu amedelete? Ama kumeendaje? Iko. Okay. Okay. Naona hapa name nini. You can see the API is working. So Manu, can you be able to do a get? So now for get, what you need to do, you have to for get, like I said, you have to put your name. You have to put your student. You have to put your query parameters in there. Student ID. I think umesema test 1 yako Manu. So if I do a request, you can see. Unaona imeniletea Manu. Thomas, did you manage?
Not yet.
Inakuletea error gani?
Inaleta error ingine mrefu.
Now, were you able to configure the nini?
Authorization.
Authorization. I think the authorization. Okay. Okay. Enda kwa authorization. Thomas.
Yes.
Unaona hapa kwa add to, add to weke query params. Okay.
Okay.
Weka query params. Usiweke header. Because this API inaitreat kama nini? Inaitreat kama query param hapa. Si unaona venye imeweka. So imekuletea kitu. Thomas.
Error message and error card validation exception.
Hey, error gani sasa? Naona 6 kuna watu. Hey, naona watu wameongeza. Kuna mtu hapa ameweka leaky testing cases Swadmo University School. What? Yeah. So now guys, nilikuwa nataka Thomas aweze kufanya like a successful API nini? API whatever. So Manu uko sawa, si ndio? Thomas umeweza? Thomas,
okay, it is 200, okay, but message ni error message.
Ni error message ama inakupatia body?
I'm also getting the same.
Maybe I can post it here.
Hebu post it hapo kwa chat.
I've posted part of it.
Okay, acha nini.
You missed it.
Hujaweka student ID kwa your item. Like I said, kwa your si unaona hadi mimi if I go to the body na nitoe student ID haitafanya. Unajua kwa nini? Because that is the check. It is going to tell me student ID is missing. You see? Because student ID, like I said, it is the whatever. It is a primary key. And I said with DynamoDB, you have to specify that You have to specify that parameter. Umenielewa? Thomas?
Yes.
Sasa umeweza? Did it give you Check.
I'm getting
sasa nimeweka.
Oh, umeweka? Let me
Eh,
check. Let me check. That would be nice. Let me check. Check. Yeah, umeweka ndani.
Thomas.
Uh,
Yeah, it's the UN.
yeah, you see, it's working. So now we have done that. We can. I have done a get request. Let me go back to my postman. Get request nimefanya ndio hiyo. Parameters ziko hapa. Nimepiga, imeniletea hii ya Manu. Thomas, umeweka nini yako aje? Student ID, let me check. Umeweka Thomas capital. Wacha tuone kama itakusoma. Tukuje hapa student ID. Thomas, ndio. Thomas, you can see? Imenirudishia, you see? Thomas, can you see?
Oh, I was on mute. I can see.
Yeah, you can see. Okay.
Yeah.
So now that is student ID. We can be able to query it with school. And remember with school tulisema iturudishia nini? All students in that school. Let's see whether it can be able to do that. Yeah, you can see it has given me all these students who are in GTOC school. So with that, our API has been successful. I also wanted to, before I cross, before we go, nimeona time imeenda, it's already, just give me 5 minutes, I finish, to explain something. So, like I said there before, one thing that I have come to appreciate about AWS or Amazon Web Services, cloud services, that you see someone like you, Thomas, you can be working on front end. You create your dashboard, you create everything. And what I just basically do is that I just give you this front end. I just give you the API the API endpoint and the API keys. And basically what you need to do to connect with my backend, you just invoke those, you just send API requests to and fro, and you're able to interact with everything. I can also be able to create some other services on AWS. This S3 bucket, you can be able to store something. Let me just tell you something interesting that I was working on. Basically what I was doing, we were creating like a portal where you could be able to put details about an employee, and what it does in backend and in my Lambda function. Remember, this is a normal Python function. You can add as many functions as you want. You can add as many libraries as you want. And you can do as much as you want. So what I did is that when the employee details are sent to the backend, I'm able to process them. I'm able to store them on the database, and I'm able to generate some QR code, which is sent to the S3 bucket. And what I do is that I'm able to return the response, the link to the QR code to the front end, and the front end, they can be able to download that QR code and they can be able to show it on the front end. I don't know whether you guys can be able to understand that. So one thing I recommend you guys to do, or to those people who are passionate about AWS is not, it has a very simple usage. One thing you will appreciate about AWS is AWS documentation is very AWS documentation is very very broad, and it's very simple. They have all the tutorials that you need. If you go to AWS documentation, you have everything. You want a database about DynamoDB, you can come here. It is going to show you about APIs, training. And what you just need to do with your free tier, unfortunately for this one, I'm using a company's account. Okay, within that company, I'm part of the backend developers. So I had told them that today use I'm gonna use the account for about 2 hours to show or to demonstrate some stuff, and they were okay with that. So with your account, you can be able to learn a lot of things using this AWS, and you can be able to practice them. You can be able to use AWS forums to practice them, and basically you can be able to build yourself as a very competent backend developer, very competent DevSop engineer, and someone who is going to be very resourceful. I think is the other day I saw Safaricom, they were hiring competent people with AWS, and they were like, "We need you to know how to create APIs. We need you to know how to use AWS machine learning." And it's just here. You can just come here and click on Athena Analytics. This is a service on AWS. You can be able to generate some analytics now from DynamoDB. If you have a database and you want to see, you can create some analytics queries like how many students are there? How many students are there in a certain school? How many marks are they getting? Basically, you can be able to use Athena, and you can find yourself getting some good deal in a company that is looking to deploy some analytics in your system. So yeah, so basically today I just wanted you to know some few stuff about AWS and creating RESTful web APIs, and yeah, I'm sure you have managed to learn something, and yeah, thank you very much. Let me see if there are some few questions that you have asked on the chat before we close. Um, Let me go up here. If you're a student here, you can use your email and get AWS credit. I see someone here ask, what is the difference between a REST API and a RESTful API? I think they are more of the same, but the main difference, or the two main APIs that many people, I'm sure, you know about, is about SOAP and REST API. So with REST, basically it's about representational state transfer. Or okay, I think my advice to you developers is that SOAP APIs, they are, I don't think they are existing anymore. If they're existing, they are very few. But focus on RESTful API, and you're going to be able. What is the average cost on AWS? I mean, hosting a production application. So if you are a startup company, or if you are thinking of a startup, there are offers which are given to by AWS startups. I think they can give you up to $10,000, which is a lot of credits for you to be able to. It's a lot of credits for you to be able to run a lot of application on production. I mean, like where you are able to generate stuff. But for students, they give free trial. If you are startup, then I think Jigs or Apps Lab, you can be able to talk with AWS startup team, and they can be able to give you some free credits to give to your members to test on the platform. Okay, one thing with cloud is that nowadays, cloud, they are in a competition. You know about Microsoft is trying very hard with their Azure. Google Cloud is also trying, but obviously AWS will remain at the top because they do have a huge client base, and also they do have a lot of services. And obviously they have been in the game for the longest time possible. So There is also, they have been able also to develop their own languages. There is a service on AWS called Cloud9, where basically you can imagine with Cloud9 you can basically create your cloud environment here. You can be able to deploy as many libraries as you want, and you can be able to do a lot of. This is Cloud9. Yeah. Let me invoke it. It's where you are able to imagine. They do have an IDE here. You see a cloud IDE for writing and debugging code, and you can be able to write it like the way you use a Linux stuff. So, what is the average cost on AWS? I can be able to. I'm not sure about. I don't know whether there is a service that has been put on. I don't know whether there is a service that has been put on production now, but there, I think I can be able to do the dealing because I'm one of the AWS administrators here. I'm the one who assigned people what to do. You see, there is nothing that we have been charged yet because basically we do have some. I think the startup was able to get some credits, and you can see they were given, I think, more than this is more than I think $13,000, which is okay. You see the remaining is about 12,000. So basically, we have not put any service on production, but obvious I can be able to answer that question maybe starting next month because there are some few stuff that we're going to put on production, and I'm sure with that we'll be able to see what exactly. But one thing with AWS, you can basically be able to set the billing. You can be able to set the billing. You can be able to. Okay, I'm just gonna check. You can be able to come here and create your billing target. So if you upload, let's say $100, you can be able to say, I want these $100 to do. You can be able to create a budget. When you create a budget, uh, when when your production hit that uh, budget and it's over, you get a notification to let you know that this has happened. Yeah, but obvious with production, it depends how big your application is. If you're looking 10,000 users, remember with AWS, you're charged cents of dollars per request. You get what I mean? And I wanted to go back to something here. Um, and and this is something that many companies will look whether are you cost conscious when you are developing your system. I want you to check here. For this query, I used table dot query. So this one we queried the database. But this one, what I did is that I did a scan. I did a scan. I did not query the database. I scanned. So, like I said, scanning the database, you go through the whole database first, and then you apply your filters. That's what the scan does. And the query, basically, you have to give it the primary ID. So basically, you go to an interview for AWS administrator or someone, or even when you are developing things for yourself, they will ask you that what are some of the ways that you can reduce cost on AWS. And obvious you need to tell them that for example, or you give them an example like if I'm going to use DynamoDB service, I need to make sure that I'm minimizing the amount of time that I'm going to use the scan operation, because with scan operation, basically you are going to use a lot of computation time and a lot of computation resources, which is going to reflect to the cost of the company. So those are some of the things that you need to understand or to be aware when you're developing these on AWS. Yeah. So with that, I think we can call it an evening, right? Manu.
Yeah, sure,
Manu,
sure.